What's a 16-year-old black girl doing in first class? That's the question Olivia Carter never heard aloud, but felt in every glance, every whisper. At 35,000 feet, the real turbulence wasn't outside the plane. It was inside the hearts of those who saw her as a threat, not a passenger. When a flight attendant snatched her life-saving medication and dumped it like garbage, she didn't know Olivia's father was a silent storm waiting to rise. What happened next would ground an entire flight, trigger a national uproar, and expose a system built to serve. Except when you look like Olivia. The air inside the first-class cabin was cool and crisp, tinged with the faint scent of citrus cleaner and overpriced cologne. Olivia Carter, 16 years old and barely 5 feet tall, shifted nervously in her leather seat. Her braids were neatly tied back, and the floral-patterned scarf her mother had chosen for her draped gently over her shoulders. It was supposed to be a milestone moment. Her first time flying first class, en route to California to visit Stanford University on a provisional scholarship for young scientists. But instead of excitement, she felt the weight of every stare. 2 rows ahead, a sharply dressed man glanced back once, then leaned toward his seatmate and muttered, "A black kid in first class? Looks suspicious." His voice was low, but not low enough. Olivia's ears burned. She lowered her gaze, pretending to adjust the gray, insulated pouch at her feet, the one holding the medication that made this trip possible. She had fought so hard to be here, through hospital stays, physical therapy, and painful treatments for juvenile dermatomyositis, an autoimmune disease that had once left her unable to walk. The biologic injections in her bag were her lifeline. Her father, Dr. Thomas Carter, had overseen every moment of her recovery, and now she was finally tasting freedom again. "Hey, Liv," he whispered, sensing her discomfort. "Just breathe. We're almost in the air." She nodded, trying to smile. Her mother, Monica, seated next to the aisle, was already dozing lightly, her hand still resting protectively on Olivia's arm. As the plane ascended, Olivia focused on the clouds outside the window, letting the white cotton tufts distract her from the cabin's tension. But peace was fleeting. The click of polished shoes announced the arrival of Debbie Monroe, a veteran flight attendant in her early 50s, with platinum blonde hair in a stiff bob and eyes that scanned the cabin like a hawk. She adjusted her collar and strode past row 3, where Olivia sat. Debbie's eyes landed on the insulated pouch at Olivia's feet. It wasn't out of place. TSA approved, with a visible medical tag. But it didn't matter. She stopped abruptly. "Excuse me, miss," she said, voice loud enough to turn heads. "Is that your bag?" Olivia looked up, startled. "Yes, ma'am. It holds my medication." Debbie's smile was thin, skeptical. "Medication, Mind if I take a quick look?" Before Olivia could respond, Dr. Carter leaned slightly forward. "We have all the documentation, including a TSA card and a letter from her physician. The bag contains temperature-sensitive biologics for a rare autoimmune condition." Debbie raised an eyebrow. "Well, I still need to verify. Safety protocols." "It was screened at security," he replied calmly. "And it's stored properly under the seat. We're happy to show you the paperwork." There was a brief silence, tense and expectant. "I'm sorry, but things that look unusual," Debbie began, her voice tight with condescension, "have to be inspected. You understand, right? Given everything going on these days." "Everything?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Debbie's eyes didn't waver. "Unattended items, suspicious packaging, protocols." From across the aisle, a young woman with neon pink hair and a piercing in one brow slowly angled her phone toward the scene. Tina Rodriguez, a law student and vlogger, had seen enough in life to recognize the beginnings of something wrong. She hit record. Dr. Carter remained seated, his voice steady but firm. "You don't have the authority to open or seize medically documented property without cause. Again, I have all documentation right here." Olivia sat frozen, her fingers trembling slightly as she clutched the strap of the pouch. Around them, whispers bloomed like mold. "What's in the bag? Why so secretive? You'd think someone important would be more cooperative. Debbie took a step closer, her body casting a shadow over Olivia's seat. "Sweetheart," she said, voice syrupy and sharp, "this cabin's for first-class passengers. If there's something in that bag you shouldn't have—" Olivia flinched. "I'm a first-class passenger," she said, barely audible. Debbie's expression didn't change. "Then act like one." The words hit like a slap, cold, calculated, loud enough for others to hear. Dr. Carter stood up slowly. "That's enough," he said. "You've crossed the line." But Debbie was already speaking into her walkie, calling for the lead attendant. "You'll need to surrender the item for inspection," she added. "We can't make exceptions." Tina's phone kept recording, her fingers shaking with indignation. What she was witnessing wasn't protocol. It was profiling, humiliation, and a child being targeted. Carter's hand gripped Olivia's shoulder gently, grounding her. "Do not give it to her," he said, voice low but resolute. "We'll escalate this properly." But before another word could be said, Debbie bent down, her hand moving with sudden force, and snatched the pouch from beneath Olivia's feet. "Hey!" Olivia cried, rising halfway from her seat. "That's mine!" Debbie didn't flinch. She held the pouch aloft like a trophy, then turned on her heel and walked briskly toward the front of the plane. The cabin fell into stunned silence. Dr. Carter stood rooted, fists clenched at his sides. Monica jerked awake, blinking rapidly. Olivia sat back down, eyes wide, heart pounding, stunned by the public violation. "She just took it," Olivia whispered. "She didn't even ask." Across the aisle, Tina muttered, "Holy shit." Her phone stayed recording, red dot blinking like an omen. The aircraft's engines hummed steadily, indifferent. But inside row 3, something irreversible had shifted. A storm had begun. Not outside in the sky, but inside the cabin, in the hearts of every witness, every whisperer, and every system about to be exposed. The cabin air felt heavier now, not from altitude, but from silence, thick, pressing, uncertain. Olivia sat motionless, her eyes locked on the empty space where her medical pouch had been just moments ago. Monica, now fully awake, instinctively reached for her daughter's hand, already sensing the tremble. Dr. Thomas Carter didn't yell. He didn't curse or chase after the flight attendant. Instead, he sat back slowly, exhaled once through his nose, and reached into the seat back pocket in front of him. From it, he pulled a plastic sleeve, sealed and meticulously organized, holding every document that mattered. "I need to see the lead attendant," he said quietly, but his voice carried a command that turned heads. Monica glanced at him. "She took it, Tom. Just took it. I saw. She didn't even look at the papers. You showed her." "I know." He stood, slow and deliberate. No sudden movements, no rising fury, just intent, controlled, precise. A man used to working under pressure, used to being the calmest voice in a room full of panic. A man who had seen life slip away on operating tables and knew that sometimes the loudest thing you could do was stay quiet. As he stepped toward the front of the plane, passengers parted without being asked. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with that subtle brand of suspicion too familiar to black men in America, especially tall, broad-shouldered black men moving with purpose. But there was no malice in his posture, only certainty. In first class, a middle-aged man wearing a navy blue suit and thick-rimmed glasses watched Thomas with sharp eyes. He hadn't said a word since boarding. Now, he quietly removed a small notepad from the inner pocket of his blazer and began scribbling. Name: Dr. Thomas Carter. Incident: medical seizure without cause. Flight number: Ascend Air, 7:32 time, approx. 9:45 a.m. EST. Witness behavior: calm, non-aggressive. He was Raymond Hunt, senior investigative journalist for The Atlantic. As Thomas reached the galley, he found Debbie Monroe mid-conversation with Becky Shaw, the lead flight attendant. Debbie held the gray pouch in both hands like a confiscated weapon, her voice sharp with authority. "Looked totally sketchy. No markings. I told him, but he got defensive. Wouldn't let me look inside. Said it was medication, but there were no labels, no prescription bottle. Could have been fentanyl for all I know." Becky looked tired already. Her day had just gotten infinitely worse. Thomas cleared his throat once. Both women turned. Debbie's face hardened. "You again?" Becky straightened. "Sir, is there something I can help you with?" "My name is Dr. Thomas Carter," he said evenly, handing Becky the clear sleeve. "Inside, you'll find documentation from Johns Hopkins Hospital, a physician's letter verifying my daughter's condition, TSA clearance for carrying medical liquids and syringes, and the details of the prescription. 4 pre-filled syringes of biologic medication that must be kept cold. Without them, my daughter will suffer muscle failure within 48 hours. Becky took the sleeve, eyes scanning the documents. Her face paled slightly. "I was attempting to show this to Ms. Monroe," Thomas continued. She refused. Then she forcibly removed the medication and walked off. Becky's throat moved as she swallowed. This is comprehensive," Debbie scoffed. "It's easy to forge paper, Becky. That pouch didn't even have a label. He could have printed that off in a hotel room." Thomas's tone dropped by a degree. "That medication costs over $18,000. It is not replaceable on demand. You did not just confiscate property. You put my daughter's health in jeopardy." Debbie crossed her arms. "Then maybe you should have flown economy like normal people and declared it properly. You think first class makes you above the rules?" Becky raised a hand. "Debbie, that's enough." But Debbie was on a roll, righteous in her belief. "I followed protocol. He refused to comply. I had every right." "You had no right to ignore federally approved medical documentation," Thomas said, his voice low but unshakable. "You had no right to make a medical judgment when you are not a medical professional." Becky interrupted quickly, sensing the temperature rise. "Where is the pouch now?" Debbie hesitated. I placed it in the secure disposal chute." Becky's eyes widened. "The sealed chute? That's not recoverable mid-flight." Thomas closed his eyes for half a second. "The medication is gone," he said softly. "You've destroyed it." Debbie stepped back, visibly shaken for the first time. Becky turned to her. "You didn't follow proper incident documentation. There's supposed to be a supervisor present before disposal. You acted alone." "I didn't think..." "That," Thomas cut in, "is the most accurate thing you've said all morning." Back in seat 3A, Olivia sat hunched forward, her arms around herself. Monica was rubbing her back in slow, soothing circles. But Olivia's eyes were glassy, unfocused. Across the aisle, Tina whispered to herself, "This is going viral." She posted the first minute of her footage with the caption, "Flight attendant confiscates and destroys black teen's life-saving medication on Attendant 732. Passenger is calm, compliant. Staff is not. #justice. For Olivia. Flying while black." The video had 12,000 views in under 5 minutes. Raymond Hunt, now fully tuned in, made a decision. He flipped to a new page. Working title, "Altitude and Prejudice, What Happened at 35,000 Feet on Attendant 732. By the time Dr. Carter returned to his seat, the damage had already begun. Olivia sat slumped forward, her face pale and slick with sweat. Her hands trembled in her lap, and the faint, rhythmic bounce of her knees betrayed a growing ache she was trying desperately to suppress. The medication that had been stolen from her was due nearly 30 minutes ago, and now her body was beginning to feel the absence, cell by cell. "Baby?" Monica leaned closer, panic rising in her voice. "Are you okay?" "No," Olivia whispered, her voice hoarse. "It hurts. I can feel it in my legs already." Thomas placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, though his mind raced. He'd witnessed flare-ups before, the way the inflammation would spread like wildfire across her joints. Her breathing would quicken, her hands would clench involuntarily. Sometimes she would vomit from the pain, and here they were, 35,000 feet in the air, hours from landing, And the only thing that could stop the spiral was now floating somewhere in the plane's trash chute, permanently out of reach. "We'll get help," he said gently, trying to calm both Olivia and Monica, whose hands were already shaking. "As soon as we land." Monica's eyes darted toward the front of the plane.
"She threw it away. Tom, are you serious?"
"I'm serious. She should be in jail for that." "She will be," he replied grimly. "But right now, we have to keep Liv stable." Just a few feet away, Tina continued streaming, her phone held low but steady, capturing every expression on Olivia's face. The chat window exploded with empathy and outrage.
"This is medical abuse."
"I work in healthcare. That girl's in real pain. Somebody sue that airline into the ground. Olivia deserves justice. Imagine if this was your daughter." A few rows behind them, a man in a gray hoodie leaned over his laptop, eyes narrowed as he read Tina's pinned tweet. He wasn't live streaming. He wasn't commenting. He was typing, fast. From Dax, live breaking, to newsroom at Daily Herald, subject, urgent, tip from Ascend Air 732. Passenger incident unfolding mid-flight. Black teen's medication confiscated by FA, reportedly discarded. Father is a doctor, live stream going viral. Send this to the social desk ASAP. He hit send, then sat back, watching chaos seed itself into the digital bloodstream. In the first-class galley, Debbie stood with her arms crossed, talking to Becky with barely concealed indignation. "It's not like I threw out her insulin or something. This was an unmarked bag. She could have had anything in there." Becky didn't answer. Her face was pale. In her hands, she still held the documents Thomas had handed her, each stamped, signed, and dated. "She's shaking now," Becky finally said. "Her mother says she's in pain." Debbie shrugged. "Then maybe they should have flown private. First class doesn't exempt you from safety rules. Do you understand what you've done? I did my job." Becky's jaw clenched. She turned and left the galley. Back at row 3, Thomas had Olivia lean back against the seat while he removed his jacket and gently draped it over her. Monica held a cool cloth from the service tray to Olivia's forehead, whispering encouragement through clenched teeth. "She's going to spike," Thomas murmured. Monica nodded. "How long do we have?" "Not long enough." Tina's voice broke through softly. "Dr. Carter?" He looked up. "I've been live streaming since she took the bag," she said. "Over 100,000 views. It's spreading fast. News outlets are tagging the airline. I thought you should know." For the first time that day, something flickered in Thomas's eyes. Gratitude, power, leverage. "Thank you," he said, simply. Suddenly, a passenger across the aisle, a well-dressed woman in her 50s, stood and walked toward the front of the cabin. She didn't say a word. She didn't look at anyone, but she held her phone in one hand, screen glowing. When she reached the galley, she found Becky just emerging. "Excuse me," the woman said quietly. "I'm a lawyer. I just saw what happened. That man and his daughter were calm and cooperative. I've sent everything I saw to The Guardian and CNN." Becky's eyes widened. Debbie, who had overheard, scoffed. "You tattled to the media?" "No," the woman said. "I exposed a crime." Back in row 3, Olivia shivered again. Her legs curled involuntarily. "It's starting," she whispered. "It's like fire in my knees." Monica fought back tears. Thomas reached into his carry-on and pulled out a slim case, his own emergency supplies. It wasn't the same medication, but he always carried prednisone tablets as a last resort. He placed one in Olivia's mouth and offered water. "It'll help dull the flare-up," he told her. "But it's not enough. It's not the biologic." "I know," Olivia murmured, her voice cracking. "I just don't want to go back to how it was. The chair, the pain." "You won't," he said. "I promise." Outside the window, clouds drifted by slowly, indifferent to the agony playing out in seat 3A. The passengers were no longer silent. Whispers became statements. Statements became judgments. People were angry. Not just for the delay they knew was coming, but for what had been done. For who it had been done to. A child, a girl, a daughter who only wanted to go to Stanford, not suffer in pain mid-air because someone saw her color before her character. Thomas sat straighter in his seat, jaw tight. "This isn't over," he whispered, not by a long shot. The galley at the front of the aircraft buzzed with quiet tension. A space meant for refreshments and routine had become the heart of a brewing storm. Dr. Thomas Carter stood still for a breath, centering himself before pulling aside the curtain. He entered the narrow corridor to find Debbie Monroe already there, fussing with a stack of plastic cups like they were the source of her discomfort. Becky Shaw, the lead attendant, looked up from the jump seat where she'd been reviewing the flight manifest on a tablet. Her eyes flicked between Debbie and Thomas with weary anticipation. "Dr. Carter," she said cautiously, "can I help you?" He didn't waste time. He reached into his breast pocket and produced a folder, rigid, color-coded, and far too organized for something that had only seconds earlier been clutched in desperation. "This contains everything your crew refused to look at earlier," he said. His voice was low, but beneath its calm ran a current of restrained fury. "My daughter's diagnosis, her prescribed biologic treatment, a copy of the TSA pre-approval for liquid medical transport, photos of the medication, labeled clearly with her name and our contact information, and a letter from the manufacturer stating it must be refrigerated at all times." Becky took the folder slowly, flipping through the contents. As her eyes scanned the documents, her shoulders sank. It was irrefutable. Clinical stamps, physician's letterhead, clear instructions from Johns Hopkins. This wasn't just legitimate. It was urgent. "I understand," she murmured, glancing briefly at Debbie, who remained silent. Thomas didn't look away. "You should have understood 30 minutes ago." Debbie let out a scoff, arms still folded. "It's not like I could read all that in the aisle. I had to act." "No," Thomas corrected. "You chose to act, without verifying anything, without listening." Becky turned to Debbie. "Did you see any of this before you took the pouch?" "She refused to hand it over," Debbie snapped. "I asked, and he got defensive. I had to make a judgment call." Thomas stepped forward slightly. "What you made was an assumption, Ms. Monroe, and now my daughter is in pain." Becky's face flushed as she flipped through a laminated TSA notification card with Olivia's name printed clearly at the top. "Did you document the disposal of the bag?" she asked Debbie carefully. Debbie hesitated. No, it was a safety issue. There wasn't time." "There's always time for protocol," Becky said. Debbie turned to her. "I did what I thought was right." "What you thought was right," Thomas echoed. "But you didn't even look." There was a moment's pause. Then Thomas reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled quickly, then handed it to Becky. "An email from the pharmaceutical company, dated last week. It confirms that a missed dose can trigger a severe relapse within 48 hours. That we must maintain temperature control within 2 degrees C. And that replacement medication takes 7 business days to prepare and ship. Minimum." Becky read the email silently. Her fingers trembled as she handed the phone back. Thomas's voice dropped to a level even colder than before. "You've done irreparable damage, and when this lands, when the public sees it, I promise you, your airline won't be able to spin it away." Behind them, Debbie moved toward the mounted service screen. With an air of defiance masked as efficiency, she tapped into the crew control panel and accessed the cabin activity log. Her hands moved quickly, accessing internal footage controls, something most attendants never touched. She navigated to the security timestamp covering the initial incident at row 3. A shaky clip appeared on screen. Olivia sitting upright, Thomas speaking calmly. And then, without a moment's hesitation, Debbie pressed the delete segment button. A warning prompt appeared. "Are you sure you want to permanently erase this footage?" She tapped yes. Her heart raced. She told herself it was necessary. She told herself it was to avoid misunderstandings. She told herself that the footage wouldn't help her anyway. It would just make her look worse. Better it was gone. Becky didn't see it. Neither did Thomas. But the system did. The airline's internal server quietly logged every deletion with a digital signature. The truth had already taken root, even if no one yet knew it. Back in row 3, Monica held Olivia close, whispering reassurances through clenched teeth. Tina's live stream had now passed 300,000 viewers. News anchors had begun tagging the video. Headlines were being drafted in real time. Thomas stepped back into the cabin, face unreadable. He sat beside his daughter again, placing a hand on her arm. "She's reviewing the documents," he told Monica. "They believe us now."
What does that even matter?
Monica replied. "The medicine's gone." He nodded.
I know.
Olivia whimpered softly, her legs drawing up.
I don't want to go back to that pain, Daddy.
"You won't," he said. And then he did what he had been avoiding. He pulled out his own phone again and placed a call. It was quick, no pleasantries, no wasted seconds. "Marshal, it's Thomas. I need your help. There's been an incident on a flight, a medical emergency, and a lawsuit." On the other end, Marshal Hill, one of the most well-connected aviation legal consultants in Washington, D.C., went still. "I need this story out. I need eyes. I need escalation." "You'll get it," Marshal said. Thomas hung up. Next, he dialed Johns Hopkins, then the FAA, then an old colleague at a news network. Each call was crisp, clear, calculated. The man who had been treated like a problem was now becoming a reckoning. The hum of the engines faded beneath the roar in Dr. Carter's mind. Despite his calm exterior, his thoughts moved like a turbine. Fast, precise, dangerous, if mishandled. Every minute without Olivia's medication was a ticking bomb. And now that Debbie had destroyed it, there was no undoing the damage, only containing the consequences. Thomas didn't speak to gain attention. He didn't need volume. Power, in its purest form, was quiet. He pulled out his phone again, scrolled quickly to a contact labeled Marshal, FAA, and pressed dial. The phone rang once. "Thomas," came the voice on the other end, firm and alert. "I need you to listen carefully," Thomas said. "I'm on Ascend Air 732. We've had a critical medical incident caused by a crew member. A flight attendant confiscated and destroyed my daughter's prescribed temperature-sensitive medication. It was documented, TSA cleared, and legally protected. I attempted to present paperwork. I was ignored." There was a pause. Then Marshall spoke again, low and serious. "Do you want me to flag this with HQ?" "I want you to do more than flag it," Thomas said. "I'm declaring this a Category 1 medical escalation. I need a record that the pilot was formally informed. I'll be issuing the statement shortly. If this plane lands without diversion, you'll want everything on record. Every second." "You have it," Marshall said. "I'll notify dispatch control and FAA medical compliance. What else?" "Prepare for a legal tsunami." Thomas ended the call and opened another contact. "Dr. Leona Wexler, Stanford Immunology." She picked up immediately. "Tom, what's wrong?" He gave her the shortest version possible. The flight, the medication, the wrongful seizure, the disposal. "I need Stanford's medical director to back me up when this hits media. I want your statement on file, emphasizing how irreplaceable this biologic is. And, if possible, prep a liaison at Stanford Medical to receive Olivia if we get diverted to California." "Done," she said. "But Tom, how is she?" He looked over. Olivia's head rested in Monica's lap, her eyes half-lidded from fatigue and the burning ache in her limbs. "She's surviving," he said. "Barely." After ending the call, Thomas stood, walked back toward the galley once more, and found Becky Shaw. "I'm issuing an official notification to the captain," he said calmly. "As of this moment, I am declaring my daughter medically unfit for continued flight due to crew misconduct and loss of critical treatment. Under FAA regulations, this is now a Class 3 medical emergency. If you continue toward San Francisco, you are knowingly transporting a passenger toward a preventable medical crisis." Becky paled. We'd need confirmation from... You now have it, Thomas said, verbally and on record. Becky blinked.
I'll inform the captain.
Do, Thomas said, and remind him that non-diversion under documented medical risk constitutes willful negligence. I'll be using those exact words in court. He turned and walked back to his seat. Passengers watched him differently now. No longer the quiet father, no longer the polite man trying to reason with bureaucracy. He had become something else, something they hadn't expected from someone who looked like him. Controlled, dangerous authority. Tina Rodriguez, still recording from her phone, zoomed in on his face as he sat. "This man," she said to the camera, "is going to bring an airline to its knees, and I'm here for every second of it." She finally turned the camera on herself. Her pink hair framed her sharp features as she addressed her growing audience. "Hi, for those of you just joining, my name's Tina. I'm a third-year law student at Columbia. I've been live-streaming what can only be described as the most disgusting display of institutional bias I've ever witnessed in a public space." She tilted the phone toward Olivia, who lay with a damp cloth on her forehead, trembling faintly.
That girl, Olivia Carter, is 16 years old. She has a rare autoimmune condition.
She boarded this flight legally, with full documentation for her medication.
A flight attendant named Debbie Monroe confiscated her meds without cause and threw them away.
She paused for effect. Now her dad, who also happens to be a pediatric neurologist, is playing this like a chess master. And Ascend Air, they're about 6 moves behind. Chat comments poured in. Where's the captain in all this? Why aren't they diverting? This man needs a TED Talk. I'm suing on their behalf and I don't even know them. Y'all better not delete this video. Tina glanced to her left. The man with the notepad, Raymond Hunt, was still writing. She whispered, "You a reporter?" He nodded. "The Atlantic." She grinned. "Good. You're going to want this footage." Meanwhile, Becky entered the cockpit. "Captain," she said, "Dr. Carter has issued a formal medical notification. He's invoking FAA policy on medical unfitness." Captain Rick Adams let out a low exhale. "Unbelievable. Are you telling me he wants to divert the plane? I'm telling you that if we don't, and she deteriorates, we're fully liable." The captain glanced over his shoulder at the first officer, who raised an eyebrow. "What's her condition?" he asked. Becky hesitated. "She's stable now, but in pain. If it worsens mid-air..." "God damn it," the captain muttered. "What's next? Twitter blowing up with some viral video?" Becky didn't respond. Back in row 3, Olivia stirred again. "I'm cold," she whispered. Monica adjusted the jacket over her. Thomas gently squeezed her hand. "Don't worry, baby. They just played their last move. It's our turn now." And the world was watching. The cockpit was silent, save for the gentle beeping of instruments and the ambient hum of the engines. Captain Rick Adams leaned back in his seat, staring blankly at the readout before him. His jaw was tight, his temples pulsing beneath the brim of his cap. Becky's words echoed in his mind. "He's invoking FAA policy. If we don't divert, we're fully liable." He wanted to scoff, wanted to believe this was all just a misunderstanding that had spiraled out of proportion. But the word liability had teeth, and the longer he hesitated, the deeper they bit. Then came the ding from the comm panel. "Ascend dispatch to 732. FAA medical compliance just flagged a Category 1 escalation on your flight. We are officially logging a passenger as medically unfit for continued travel." Rick cursed under his breath. His first officer turned, concern clear in his eyes. "You want me to plot Denver?" the FO asked quietly. Rick didn't answer at first. Then, with a reluctant nod, he muttered, "Do it. Tell ATC we're diverting due to a medical emergency." Down in the galley, Becky let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She tapped the intercom and dialed in the cabin-wide system. "Ladies and gentlemen," her voice announced over the speakers, "we've received an in-flight medical update requiring a change in course. For safety and evaluation, we'll be diverting to Denver International Airport. We understand this may be inconvenient, and we thank you for your understanding." The cabin erupted almost immediately. "What? You've got to be kidding me. I've got a connection in San Francisco. This is ridiculous." Olivia stirred at the noise. Thomas leaned over and whispered gently, "Ignore them, sweetheart. You're the priority now." Monica glanced nervously around. The shift in mood was sharp. The whispers weren't just curious now, they were hostile. Tina kept her camera rolling. "Well, folks," she said to her audience, now over 750,000 viewers strong, "the plane is officially being diverted. That's what accountability looks like at 35,000 feet." At the rear of the cabin, a young trainee flight attendant named Morgan stood frozen. Her eyes had gone wide when Becky's announcement came over the speakers. She clutched a water bottle like a lifeline as she watched Debbie Monroe pace near the jump seat. Morgan hesitated, then walked over to the galley where Becky stood reviewing the dispatch orders. "Becky," she said quietly. Becky turned. "Yes? I don't want to overstep," Morgan began, lowering her voice to a whisper. "But this isn't the first time Debbie's done something like this." Becky blinked. "What do you mean?" Morgan looked down, her fingers tight around the bottle. "A few months ago, on a Miami flight, she confiscated a woman's asthma inhaler. Said it was unapproved because it wasn't in English. The woman had a panic attack 20 minutes later, and we had to request EMTs upon landing." Becky's lips parted in disbelief. "I thought maybe it was a fluke," Morgan continued. "But this is a pattern. She always acts righteous about it, but it's always people who—" She trailed off. "Who look like Olivia?" Becky finished grimly. Morgan nodded. Becky closed her eyes for a beat. "Thank you for telling me." Back in row 3, Thomas's phone vibrated with a text from Marshall at the FAA. "Diversion logged. On record. You did it, Tom." He looked over at Tina, who gave him a thumbs up. "The chat's going wild," she said. "Most of them are calling you the calm storm." Thomas cracked the barest smile. "Let's hope it holds." But the cabin wasn't calming. A man across the aisle stood up, gesturing angrily. "This is a joke," he barked. "You're grounding a whole plane because one kid didn't pack her meds right?" Before Thomas could respond, a voice came from behind. "Sit down," said the woman in the navy blazer, the same passenger who had earlier emailed the Guardian. She stood now, tall and commanding. "You're upset about your schedule. That girl is trying not to go into full-blown muscular collapse. Show some basic human decency." The man backed down with a grunt and dropped into his seat. Thomas turned to the woman. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," she said. "They haven't landed." As the plane banked toward Denver, the tension remained thick, but the tides were shifting. Becky re-entered the front cabin and knelt next to Olivia. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Olivia managed a weak nod. "Okay-ish." Becky turned to Thomas. "Captain says we'll be wheels down in about 40 minutes. EMTs will be waiting." Thomas nodded. "Thank you." Becky lingered for a moment, then added, "I want you to know, I didn't approve any of this. What Debbie did was wrong." "She'll face consequences," Thomas said. "But what matters now is that my daughter gets care." As Becky stood and turned away, Thomas pulled Monica close. "They moved," he whispered. "They had no choice," Monica replied. "No," Thomas said. "They had a choice. We just took the easy ones off the table." Outside the cabin windows, the Rocky Mountains loomed in the distance, sharp and snow-dusted. Denver wasn't home, but today it would be a battleground. And the storm that had begun with a whisper was now closing in on its first real impact. The descent into Denver was smooth, but the atmosphere in the cabin was anything but. As the Boeing 777 dipped lower through wisps of white cloud, a distinct chime sounded overhead. Then, the captain's voice came through the speakers, measured but hollow. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Due to an unforeseen passenger medical issue, we are making an unscheduled landing at Denver International Airport. Emergency medical services will be standing by upon arrival. We apologize for the inconvenience and thank you for your cooperation." He didn't mention Olivia by name. He didn't have to. The shift in the cabin was immediate. Some groaned audibly, checking their watches or muttering complaints into their phones. Others, those who had watched, listened, and understood, reacted differently. A woman 2 rows behind Olivia let out a choked sob, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Olivia lay nestled against her mother, her face flushed, her body still aching. She blinked slowly at the announcement, her breath shaky.
"They're landing for me,"
she whispered.
"Yes, baby,"
Monica replied, pressing her lips to her daughter's temple. "Because you matter." Tina panned her camera across the cabin. "That's right, folks," she said to the stream, now nearing 1 million viewers. "The plane is officially landing early for the girl they tried to ignore." Chat exploded. That captain didn't sound too happy. "Don't care. Land the damn plane. This is justice unfolding in real time. Somebody give that girl a scholarship." "Where's the airline's official statement?" As the jet began its approach, Becky stood and made her way down the aisle once more, this time with a softness in her voice that hadn't been there earlier. "We'll be landing in approximately 12 minutes. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Cabin crew, prepare for landing." Debbie Monroe remained at the rear of the plane, her face a rigid mask of silent fury. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She had felt the tide turn and knew instinctively it wasn't in her favor. Morgan, the trainee, sat beside her, fidgeting nervously. She finally whispered,
"They're going to ask questions."
Debbie's jaw clenched.
"Then I'll give them answers."
But even she knew those answers wouldn't save her. As the aircraft glided closer to the runway, a man in the aisle seat across from Thomas stood up briefly and turned to face the rest of the cabin. He was middle-aged, wore a faded hoodie, and carried the unmistakable weariness of someone who had lived through more than most. "My son has Crohn's disease," he said, voice calm but clear. "He's 10. If someone ever took his meds away on a flight, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be in jail." A murmur of agreement rose from the rows around him. Another woman, older, with a cane resting by her feet, added softly,
"My granddaughter has lupus. She can't go a day without her meds.
"This shouldn't happen. Not to anyone." One by one, voices joined in. A man near the back,
"My niece is diabetic. TSA always gives us hell. We carry a binder just like that doctor did."
A younger woman, tears on her cheeks.
"I lost my sister because a pharmacy delayed her treatment. Watching this isn't just about Olivia. This is about all of us."
And suddenly, the noise in the cabin wasn't outrage. It was solidarity. Tina turned her camera back to herself, her eyes shimmering.
"You hearing this? This is what happens when people stop being bystanders. This is what empathy sounds like.
Look at what one girl's truth just inspired." Thomas sat quietly, holding Olivia's hand as tears slipped down her cheeks. Not from pain now, but from something else.
"I didn't think anyone would care," Olivia whispered. "Not like this."
"They care," Thomas said, "because now they've seen you. Not as a patient, as a person." The wheels touched down with a subtle bounce. A moment later, the brakes engaged, and the plane began to taxi toward a designated gate flanked by blinking emergency lights. The engines hummed lower, and with a final jolt, the aircraft came to a complete stop. A new chime. Becky's voice returned over the intercom. "For the family in row 3, please remain seated. Medical personnel and airline staff will be boarding shortly. All other passengers, we appreciate your patience during deplaning." The seatbelt lights flicked off. The aisle filled with murmurs again, but this time, no one rushed to leave. Passengers stayed seated, turned toward Olivia's row, many simply watching, waiting. Some clapped quietly. Others just nodded in silent respect. Thomas stood, slowly and purposefully. Olivia tried to sit up, but her legs buckled, and Monica helped support her. Becky appeared beside them moments later, flanked by 2 EMTs in Navy uniforms. "We'll be gentle," one said softly. "We've got her." They lifted Olivia onto a narrow medical transport chair. She winced but didn't cry out. Her strength, even in fragility, was palpable. As they wheeled her down the aisle, passengers leaned aside, some whispering words of encouragement. "You got this, sweetheart. Be proud. You were brave. We're with you." Tina filmed the whole procession. "This," she said quietly to the camera, "is what it looks like when the silent get heard." As Olivia passed Debbie, the flight attendant looked away, refusing eye contact. Her hands clutched the headrest of her seat, knuckles white. Thomas met her eyes briefly. She blinked first. The walk down the jet bridge was quiet, save for the distant clicks of cameras from the terminal beyond. Denver had no idea what was coming, but karma had just landed. The wheels of the transport chair rolled smoothly down the jet bridge, flanked by 2 EMTs and trailed closely by Thomas and Monica. Olivia's face was pale, her breaths shallow, but there was relief in her eyes. The plane had landed. Help was near. And now, every step forward felt like reclaiming something stolen. Dignity, control, visibility. As they exited into the terminal, a wall of tension met them. A small group of Denver airport security, Ascendair corporate staff, and medical support personnel stood in a tight knot just beyond the gate. Camera phones were already raised. The story had outrun the flight itself. Tina was still streaming, walking backward to keep the family in frame. Behind her, passengers slowly trickled out, many stopping to watch as Olivia was wheeled toward the paramedic staging area. Then came the voice, sharp, rehearsed, bureaucratic. "Dr. Carter, please wait," said a man in a navy blazer with an Ascendair badge clipped to his lapel. "I'm Paul Henderson, Denver Terminal Operations. We'd like to debrief with you and your family after your daughter receives medical attention." Thomas nodded once, curt and without expression. "You'll speak with my attorney." Behind them, another scene unfolded. Debbie Monroe, still in uniform, was standing near the crew exit when 2 Ascendair internal investigators approached her. "Ms. Monroe, we'll need you to step aside for a formal incident review," one said, his voice clipped and impersonal. Debbie's posture stiffened. "I followed protocol." "We'll determine that shortly," the other responded. Passengers continued walking by, casting glances at the woman who, just hours ago, had carried herself with the smug certainty of authority. Now, her confidence was crumbling, piece by piece. Back at the medical bay, Olivia was being transferred to a stretcher. One of the EMTs examined her vitals while the other radioed the local hospital. "BP elevated, joint stiffness confirmed. She needs biologic replacement within 24 hours, max." Thomas stood nearby, watching closely but saying little. He knew this part of the process. Let the professionals work. Step in only if needed. From behind, a voice startled him. "Dr. Carter?" He turned. Captain Rick Adams stood just outside the curtained medical zone. His shoulders were slumped, the gleam of command gone from his posture. He looked tired and afraid. Thomas stepped out to meet him. "I wanted to explain," Adams said quietly. Thomas raised an eyebrow. "I knew," the captain said, voice dropping lower. "When Becky told me about the medication and the documentation, I knew it wasn't a threat. I've seen these protocols before. I've had passengers with insulin, EpiPens, dialysis bags. I knew this wasn't a security issue." "Then why didn't you act?" Thomas asked, his voice still even. "I trusted my crew," Adams admitted. "Debbie's been flying 20 years. She said you were combative. She said the bag was suspicious. So you sided with her." Adams didn't deny it. "I didn't want to contradict my flight team in front of passengers. I figured we'd land, sort it out. I didn't realize she'd actually destroyed the meds until after you confronted her. And by then, it was too late," Thomas finished. "Yes." There was a long silence. "You chose loyalty over logic," Thomas said. "I chose the chain of command," Adams replied weakly. "That's not leadership," Thomas said. That's cowardice dressed in uniform. Adams flinched. I'm not here for an apology, Thomas continued. I'm here to make sure this never happens to another child, another family. Because if you're flying metal tubes full of human lives across the sky and still think chain of command justifies negligence, you're not fit to wear those stripes. Adams didn't argue. He simply nodded and walked away, shoulders heavier than before. Elsewhere in the terminal, Debbie sat in a sterile conference room, flanked by 2 internal investigators. A laptop sat open in front of her. The screen paused on footage from the flight's internal cabin cameras, what remained of it anyway. We recovered most of the security feed, one investigator said, but there's a 5-minute gap during the incident. Debbie folded her arms. The camera glitched. We have internal logs showing manual deletion, the other replied. From your login. She didn't respond. The footage we do have, the first investigator continued, shows Dr. Carter seated calmly. No aggression, no raised voice. You removed the pouch without verbal consent, over the objections of both parents. Do you deny that? No, Debbie said. But I still believe I was right. Why? The second investigator asked. With documentation in hand? With TSA approval? With medical tags visible? Debbie's jaw tightened. I've seen things. People lie. People smuggle. You think just because someone wears a suit and speaks calmly that they're telling the truth? The investigators exchanged a glance. This wasn't about a pouch, the first said. This was about bias, and it's about to cost the company millions. Debbie said nothing. In the terminal, Olivia was being loaded into a waiting ambulance. Monica climbed in with her while Thomas remained behind to speak briefly with the media gathering near the cordoned gate. Dr. Carter, a reporter called. How do you respond to the airline's statement that this was a misunderstanding? Thomas faced the cameras, unblinking. This wasn't a misunderstanding, he said. It was a conscious failure. A failure to listen. A failure to follow procedure. And a failure to see my daughter as human. He paused. But we're not just here to expose failure. We're here to demand better. For Olivia. For every child who travels. For every parent who's ever had to watch their kid suffer in silence because someone else decided they didn't belong. The cameras flashed. The words would go viral. And the real reckoning had only just begun. By the time Olivia reached the University of Colorado Hospital, the world had already changed. Tina's live stream, once a quiet stream of one girl's struggle on an airplane, had surpassed 3.1 million views. News outlets from coast to coast had picked up the footage, cutting it into headlines and sound bites that ricocheted across social platforms. Flight attendant destroys black teen's medication mid-flight. Father forces emergency landing after daughter's life put at risk. Flying while black. Again. Every angle was covered. Civil rights, medical negligence, racial profiling, corporate accountability. Twitter hashtags trended globally. Justice. For Olivia, #Debbie. The disgrace, #Ascend crisis, #protect black girls. That morning, most of the world hadn't known who Olivia Carter was. By evening, she was the face of a movement she never asked to lead. At Ascend headquarters in Chicago, panic had replaced procedure. In a hastily assembled press room, flanked by visibly tense PR reps and legal counsel, CEO Bennett Klein stepped up to the podium in a navy suit that looked like it had been grabbed from the back of a closet. We are deeply sorry for the distress caused to the Carter family, he began. What happened on Flight 732 does not reflect the values of Ascend Air. We take these allegations very seriously. An internal investigation is already underway, and we have placed the crew involved on administrative leave. He paused for questions. A reporter from the Washington Post stood. Is Debbie Monroe still employed? She has been suspended pending the outcome of our review, Klein replied. Another voice cut through the scrum. Why wasn't the flight diverted immediately after the father declared a medical emergency? Klein hesitated. There were communication breakdowns that we're actively reviewing. A scoff echoed through the room. Despite the carefully rehearsed remorse, the public wasn't buying it.
The apology came too late. The footage was too raw, the story too human to spin. And then came the twist no one at Attendant expected. A video clip surfaced online, an interview shot in a quiet backyard, framed by wind chimes and oak trees. Sitting in a lawn chair, wearing a t-shirt that read "Dads for Justice," was Congressman Elijah Whitmore. He leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. "My son," he said, "is 9 years old, autistic. 4 months ago, we were on a flight from Dallas to Seattle. He was stimming, making noises. A flight attendant told us to control him or get off the plane. That flight attendant's name was Debbie Monroe." The interviewer blinked. "The same Debbie Monroe from Attendant 732? Whitmore nodded. "I recognized her the second I saw the video." He continued, voice hardening. "I didn't go public then. I let it go. But seeing what she did to Olivia Carter, that was the last straw." Within hours, the clip had gone viral. Hashtags multiplied. The story transformed from one isolated act of cruelty to a pattern of abuse, repeated and condoned. Whitmore wasn't alone. Advocates from the Autism Society, NAACP, and American Medical Association issued joint statements demanding not only action against Debbie, but systemic reform within Attendant and the airline industry at large. Olivia, meanwhile, lay resting in a hospital bed surrounded by silence and saline drips. Doctors had stabilized her symptoms with alternative medication. The flare-up had not progressed to permanent damage yet, but the cost of inaction was still being tallied. Outside her hospital room, Thomas and Monica sat together on a small couch. Exhaustion lined their faces, but something new burned in their eyes. Purpose. "She didn't want this attention," Monica said softly. "I know," Thomas replied, "but maybe it's exactly what others needed to see." He handed her his phone. A new article was trending. The Carter case could redefine federal guidelines for in-flight medical rights. Below that, another headline from Teen Vogue. "Olivia Carter is all of us." The door opened. Tina entered quietly, her pink hair now pulled back in a loose bun, dark circles under her eyes. "She's trending in 13 countries, she said. Thomas exhaled. "God help them all." Tina sat beside them. "I've been doing interviews all day. CNN, Vice, MSNBC. They all want to talk to you. You're being invited to panels, roundtables, policy summits." The White House issued a statement saying they're monitoring the situation. Monica blinked. "The White House?" Tina nodded. "It's not just a story now. It's a reckoning." Suddenly, Thomas's phone rang. "Unknown number," the screen read. He answered. "Dr. Carter?" said a deep, calm voice. "This is Secretary Marlene Harris. I run the Department of Transportation." Thomas stood instinctively. "Yes, ma'am." "I wanted to personally offer my apologies," she said, "and my support. We're launching a review of FAA protocols for in-flight medical enforcement. Your experience is informing new training procedures." Thomas swallowed. "We want to work with you," she continued, "to make sure what happened to Olivia never happens again." He nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "I'm ready." After he hung up, he turned to Monica and Tina. "It's happening," he said. "The shift." Tina smiled tiredly. "They underestimated you, and they saw her as fragile. But Olivia? She broke the sky open." In the hallway outside, nurses walked past, unaware that in room 321, the center of a national movement was quietly sleeping, wrapped in warm blankets and a history she never asked to carry, but now carried with grace. 2 days after the emergency landing in Denver, Attendant's legal team sent their first offer. It was exactly what Thomas Carter expected: an NDA-laced goodwill settlement paired with a public statement of mutual misunderstanding. The financial figure was sizable, 7 digits easily, but the message was clear: "We'll pay you to let this disappear." Thomas didn't even finish reading the document before forwarding it to Daniel Price, the civil rights attorney who had introduced himself in the terminal just days earlier.
His reply came back in under 2 minutes. "Tell them to go to hell. We're going public." Thomas didn't need convincing. In a press conference held on the steps of the University of Colorado Medical Center, he stood beside Monica, Tina, Daniel, and 3 prominent national civil rights lawyers. Behind them hung a printed banner, "Olivia deserves more." "I will not accept hush money for my daughter's pain," Thomas said, voice steady, resolute. "We are filing a lawsuit against Attendant not just for damages, but for systemic change. This is not about revenge, it's about reform." The crowd erupted in applause. Tina stepped forward next. "This isn't just about Olivia Carter. This is about every family who's ever been silenced, ignored, or treated like a threat for simply trying to exist." Behind the scenes, Daniel was already assembling a legal assault team. Depositions were scheduled, subpoenas issued, and most critically, they were digging into the airline's internal records. It didn't take long to strike gold. In a secure data recovery lab in Chicago, forensic IT specialists working for Daniel's firm pulled a digital record from Attendant's internal server logs. It was subtle, buried under system cache and marked as routine override. But the metadata was clear. User, D. Monroe Action Deleted Segment. Cabin Cam 3A Timestamp 0946 AM EST. March 3rd, Action Status. Manual Override. Unauthorized. They had proof. The camera footage, believed to have been wiped, was partially recovered, and what it showed was devastating. The video opened with Olivia reaching for her medication pouch, her hands shaking. Dr. Carter, seated, clearly presented the sleeve of documents to Debbie. His voice, though too quiet to capture perfectly, was calm, his expression composed. Then came the moment Debbie yanked the pouch from Olivia's hands without warning, turned her back, and marched away. No confrontation, no resistance, no justification. When the footage was shown to Attendant's executives during deposition prep, the room reportedly fell silent for nearly a full minute. "It's indefensible," one lawyer whispered. "She lied under oath." "She did more than that," Daniel replied. "She weaponized her authority against a sick child. That's not just misconduct, that's moral rot." The clip was leaked, intentionally or not, no one would ever confirm, and played on every major news station within 24 hours. Public opinion, already against the airline, now boiled over. Letters from other families flooded in, accounts of ignored medical conditions, mishandled disabilities, and racially charged treatment in flight. Attendant's Internal Affairs Division became overwhelmed, forced to hire outside investigators to handle the tidal wave of complaints. And then came the groundswell. Using a portion of donated legal fees, grant funds, and early support from several nonprofit partners, Thomas and Monica launched the Olivia Justice Network, a foundation created to support families pursuing legal action for medical discrimination, provide education on passenger rights, especially for travelers with chronic conditions or disabilities, push for national policy reform requiring mandatory anti-bias and medical sensitivity training for all commercial airline employees. The launch event was modest, held in a library conference room in Baltimore, but broadcast online to over 4 million viewers. Olivia, still recovering, appeared virtually. Her voice was soft but clear. "I didn't want to be part of something like this," she said. "But now that I am, I want it to mean something. I want people to be safer because we stood up." It was the kind of moment that cracked people open. Parents watching wept. Doctors shared it on their social feeds. Airline employees began reaching out anonymously, sharing stories of their own frustrations with corporate indifference. The FAA announced a formal review of flight attendant training guidelines. Several senators signed a bipartisan letter demanding Attendant testify before the Transportation Committee. And public opinion? It was fire. Polls showed trust in the airline industry had dropped sharply. Boycotts were trending. Meanwhile, Attendant's CEO, Bennett Klein, issued a second, far more contrite public statement. "We failed. Not just the Carter family, but all passengers who placed their trust in us. We are beginning a full structural audit of our internal training, disciplinary, and passenger support systems. We will cooperate fully with the legal process. Too little, too late. Debbie Monroe, now formally terminated, was subpoenaed for deposition. When she entered the room, eyes hollow, she didn't look at Thomas. She barely spoke, save to confirm her actions. When asked why she deleted the footage, she simply said, "I panicked." Her former union issued a statement distancing themselves from her actions. Her name, once just a name on a flight manifest, had become shorthand for a wider sickness, authority unchecked by compassion. The lawsuit was progressing, but in the court of public opinion, the verdict had already landed. People didn't just want justice, they wanted change. They wanted something to believe in, and in Olivia Carter, they had found it. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read aloud. Attendant was found liable for gross negligence, unlawful discrimination, and violation of federal protections for medical passengers. The jury awarded the Carter family $42 million in damages, one of the largest non-fatal airline settlements in U.S. history. But that number wasn't the real headline. The real victory was in the injunctive relief clause, binding legal obligations that would force the airline to completely overhaul its internal policies. Not just temporary training or a media-facing apology. Real, enforceable, institutional change. And at the heart of it was something new. The Olivia Protocol. Drafted in collaboration with medical experts, civil rights attorneys, disability advocates, and Thomas Carter himself, the Olivia Protocol would become the national standard for how airlines handle passengers with chronic or rare medical conditions, medical documentation and transport of temperature-sensitive medication, internal conflict resolution without bias or escalation, camera footage handling and tamper-proof protocols, staff education on implicit bias and trauma-informed care. The Department of Transportation adopted it as a recommended best practice within 8 weeks of the court's decision. The FAA followed. Other airlines, facing mounting pressure and threats of boycotts, rushed to implement similar systems. And by year's end, every major U.S. carrier had adopted the Olivia Protocol in full or in part. Thomas was named chair of the newly formed Aviation Equity and Safety Task Force. Monica co-founded a training consultancy specializing in anti-bias education for frontline airline staff. Olivia, still recovering, still fragile, found herself the subject of high school essays, art projects, even a TEDx event titled Small Voices, Big Altitude. But not everyone applauded. Some critics called the case overblown. Others accused the Carters of profiting off tragedy. And then there was the letter. 4 months after the verdict, a scanned image of a handwritten letter appeared on Reddit. Then Twitter. Then national news. The signature at the bottom read, Debbie Monroe. It was 4 pages long, written in slanted cursive on lined notebook paper. A confession, a reflection, a plea. I see now what I didn't see then. I saw a threat where there was a child. I saw attitude where there was fear. I saw color before I saw humanity. She went on to describe her history, raising a son who struggled with addiction, the paranoia that grew inside her after watching him self-destruct, and how she began projecting that fear onto every teenager she saw who didn't fit the image of safe in her mind. I thought I was protecting the plane. I was just protecting my prejudice. The letter ended with a simple line. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but I had to say it out loud. Some read the letter and wept. Some reposted it with captions like, "This is what accountability looks like." But for many, especially those who had lived through similar pain, the response was less generous. The most common comment? Too late. Thomas received the letter from Daniel in an envelope. He didn't open it immediately. When he did, he read it once, then again. Then, without a word, he slid it back into its envelope and placed it in a locked drawer. He didn't respond. He didn't forward it to Olivia. He didn't post about it online.
To forgive something didn't mean you had to broadcast it, and to refuse forgiveness didn't mean you hadn't healed. In an interview with NPR, Thomas was asked directly, "What do you make of her letter?" His answer was quiet, measured. "I think remorse matters," he said. "But so does timing. So does accountability. So does the irreversibility of certain actions. I don't hate Debbie Monroe, but I won't pretend a letter changes what she took from my daughter." There was a pause before he added, "But the system that allowed her to act that way, that's what we had to break." And we did. The interviewer asked him if he felt the change was real. Thomas smiled for the first time in the conversation. "It's real," he said. "I've seen it." He went on to describe how, just a week prior, he'd flown again, with Olivia and Monica, on a different airline. Before takeoff, a young flight attendant approached their row with a warm smile and said, "I noticed the medical tag on your bag. Just so you know, we're fully trained on Olivia protocol. If you need anything, I'm here." Thomas said he had never felt safer in the sky, and Monica had cried in her seat. Not out of fear, out of recognition. This was what it was supposed to feel like all along. In a classroom in Newark, a fifth-grade teacher used the story of Olivia Carter to explain the meaning of systemic injustice and how individuals could fight it. In a training room in Phoenix, newly hired flight attendants watched a video of the incident and were told, "This is what never happens again." In a courtroom in Seattle, a mother cited the Carter case when defending her son's right to travel with critical medication. Change was happening. Not because someone had yelled, not because someone had rioted, but because one family had refused to be silent, and because one teenage girl, too sick to walk unaided down an airplane aisle, had been seen, clearly, loudly, fully, by the world. The auditorium at Stanford University was packed, not with students cramming for finals or professors lecturing on astrophysics, though many of them were in the crowd, but with hundreds gathered for a single voice, a story, a symbol. On the stage, lit gently by amber downlights, stood Olivia Carter. She wore a deep blue dress and low-heeled shoes, not for fashion, but for stability. Her hands still trembled when overworked. Her knees ached in the cold, but she stood without help, her back straight, her presence quiet yet immense. Behind her, projected across the wall, was the phrase, "Wounds become wings." She had been invited by Stanford not only as their newest full scholarship recipient, but as a keynote speaker for their annual Voices of Resilience event. It wasn't just an honor, it was a full circle moment. Her acceptance into Stanford had been fast-tracked after the ordeal, but Olivia didn't want a pity seat. She deferred admission until she could apply the standard way, and she got in, again, on her own merit, with honors. As she stepped up to the podium, the audience quieted. She took a breath. "My name is Olivia Carter. I'm a science nerd, a chronic illness warrior, and apparently a national symbol of airline reform. But mostly, I'm just someone who got tired of being invisible." There were soft chuckles, nods. "You all know what happened to me. You've read the articles, shared the hashtags, but what you don't know is what happened after." She looked out into the crowd. After the live stream ended, after the headlines faded, after the cameras turned away, I had to relearn how to trust people, how to trust systems, how to trust the sky. The room was still. I still have flare-ups. I still have hospital visits. But now, because of what we built, because of what so many of you helped push forward, I can get on a plane and not be seen as a threat. I can carry my medicine and not be questioned like a criminal. And somewhere, right now, a little girl who looks like me is sitting in seat 3A, safe, because we said enough. Applause swelled, but Olivia held up a hand. "I'm grateful. I really am. But I also know this truth. If no one had been filming that day, if one girl with pink hair hadn't had the courage to live stream, I might not be standing here." She paused. "I might not even be walking." A hush fell across the room like fog. If that footage didn't exist, if Tina hadn't been there, if the world hadn't seen what was done to me, it would have been just another misunderstanding, another apology,
Another family gaslit into silence. Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry. I'm not here today because I'm strong. I'm here because I was seen. And with that, she stepped back, nodding once to the audience. The applause was thunderous. Standing ovation, students wiping tears, faculty rising from their seats. Some sobbed. Others simply whispered, "Thank you." From the front row, Thomas and Monica held hands. Tina sat beside them, no longer live streaming, just watching, smiling with the pride of someone who'd witnessed a spark become a flame. Weeks after the event, donations poured in. And with those funds, the Carters launched the Olivia Wings Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to assisting families of children with rare autoimmune and chronic diseases, providing travel grants for access to specialized care across states, training airline and hospital staff on compassion-first protocols, funding research for overlooked medical conditions. The foundation's logo was simple, a butterfly with wings made of clouds. Its mission was anything but. Within 6 months, Olivia Wings had distributed grants to 143 families across 29 states. They partnered with 4 airlines, launched a national awareness campaign, and lobbied for a new federal grant program to fund rare disease travel. But Olivia remained the soul of it all. She didn't crave attention. She didn't parade herself at fundraisers, but when she spoke, people listened. One of the most watched clips of the year came from a high school journalism conference, where a 14-year-old girl asked Olivia, "What would you say to Debbie Monroe if she stood in front of you right now?" The room went silent. Olivia thought for a long time, then said simply, "I'd ask her what her life would look like if someone had done to her son what she did to me. And then I'd tell her, I didn't need her apology. I needed her not to do it in the first place." No bitterness, no vengeance, just clarity, truth, legacy. Thomas would later say that the hardest part wasn't the flight, or the court case, or even the recovery. The hardest part, he told a panel, was letting Olivia lead the way once the world tried to turn her into a symbol. She never wanted that. She wanted to study stars, to build telescopes, to go to Mars, not media interviews. He smiled, but the universe had other plans, and she rose to meet them. And so, from one moment, one decision by a single flight attendant, came a cascade of pain, fury, reckoning, and change. A wound opened at 35,000 feet, but in healing it, Olivia Carter gave wings to millions more.